And we continue with adventure number 3 of the Jesus Entrepreneur Experience and how Jesus sells, because he does. Here's the story, and this is part 2. Now, welcome to part 2 of how Jesus sells. Well, now, in the story, John has introduced him, and he's making his move. And that's exactly what he does do. He was from Nazareth, but he realizes that obviously the initial run in Nazareth did not go terribly well. And prophet is not honored in his own people. Oftentimes they're the worst people to try and work with. And so he makes a move. He starts bringing his people together, and we don't know whether he got all the people together before he began his ministry or if it was just part of finding them and inviting them. And that's a whole nother lesson in how he chose his people. But that's coming up when we talk about building a world-class company. And so he's off, and he goes to Capernaum, which is a neighboring town, but it's far enough away. And that's where he actually begins to do his work. He doesn't go into the big city. He knows that it will be better for him to begin his work among the smaller villages, knowing that there the people communicate oftentimes in personal relationships, and that the word of what he does will spread among the people from village to village in this small town, in these small towns. And so he's off doing that. And that's what he does. And now, here is the key which makes him so different. I've taken a lot of sales training. Most of it doesn't work. Most of it's wrong. And most of the sales training you have taken is wrong too. I will tell you that. It wasn't very good when you took it, and it's probably not going to work at all right now in these new and modern times. I taught for many years, and still do, I would say, what I had learned both from my radio days and from some of the things that I was doing, that, people always loved it when I said, let me tell you a story. They would perk up. And so I oftentimes said, storytelling is one of the more effective means of communication. And people, yeah, okay. Well, then I more and more said, well, storytelling is probably one of the most effective means of communication. And I got a challenge on that. Well, educate the people, show them the facts, give them the figures, give them the details, all of that features and benefit stuff that you were taught in sales training. I said, okay, but then I discovered this. If you want to affect people, if you want them to do something, if you want them to change, storytelling is the only effective means of communication. Where did I learn that from? Well, as one of my friends one time taught me this wonderful saying, never met her, but she became a friend because I read her book. Rebecca Pibbert wrote a book. She was a journalist, and she simply said this, the master teacher, Jesus of Nazareth, came into the world, and he told stories and asked questions. So what do? We preach sermons and give answers. Think about that. We preach sermons, we give answers, we do PowerPoints, we do presentations, we do speeches, and we have all the answers. We know how to overcome objections. No, the master teacher told stories and asked questions. In fact, it very much implies that those stories, those parables, were the only really thing he did most of the time. And people got their attention. Now, I could do a whole series of workshops on this. What we have discovered is that storytelling is indeed the only effective means of communication. And some of the most powerful words in the English language is how I often begin my own presentations. I just step forward and say, my name is Stan. please let me tell you a story. They are at full attention. We love stories. That's how we make sense of the world, by telling stories and hearing stories. Jesus taught the world of sales 2,000 years before all of their sales techniques were developed. Watch me. I will tell stories and I will ask questions. Because you see, here's the great truth that he learned. He knew that a truth told is good, but it's seldom heard or believed. Just because you told the truth doesn't necessarily get people to believe or listen to you. A truth revealed has greater yield. Well, if you reveal the truth to them, you show it to them, they're more likely to say, okay. But a truth discovered is best of all, and a truth imposed is no truth at all. And if you write anything down from this workshop, make sure you wrote that down. But a truth imposed is no truth at all. And by telling stories, you help people discover the truth for themselves. I one time was challenged on a statement that I made because I was trying to get people's attention when I told about stories, and I would say, well, you know, not all of my stories are real, but they're all true. Well, what do you mean by that? I just said it, let it go. Someone came up and challenged me, and they said, well, how can you do that? I said, have you ever heard of the story of the prodigal son? Oh, yeah. I said, well, that's my favorite story. And I said, was that a real story? When Jesus told it, did he say it was a real story? It's a parable. He basically said, once upon a time, there was. I said, I don't know if it was real, but I know it was true. And I just leave that with you, as I oftentimes used to say on late night radio, just let that sit on your head for a while. But what I want to do is simply challenge you with that great truth. And now it should change everything about how you sell. How you sell. In fact, one time I was doing that very same thing to a sales group, and they were hesitant about it. But during the Q&A, one of the very top salesmen, a very calm and nice and gentle man in the back row, stood up and said, Stan, may I tell the group a story? I said, sure. And he came up and he said simply this. He said, let me tell you, that's all true. Everything he said is true. He said, when I was a young salesman, one person in my church really respected me and liked me, and he gave me a recommendation to one of the top businessmen in our community. Wow, what a recommendation, what a referral. And so he said, I was all set. I got my brochures all together and my business cards and all of my charts and everything. Oh, I was well prepared. I had it all there. And I said, I went to his office, and his assistant ushered me into the office, and the man was blind. The man was blind. Everything I had to show him and demonstrate to him was useless. And I said, I panicked, and then all of a sudden, I simply didn't know what to do. And so I said to him, Mr. Snow, I'm so grateful that you would see me. You have built a real wonderful business. Could you tell me how you did that, how you got your start? And the man opened up, and he just enjoyed telling people all about him. And guess what the young man did? He asked questions. And at the end, he said, and now, young man, what are you all about? And then he said, all I did is I told him why I was in the business, why I had decided to get in this business. And I said, maybe we could do business someday. And he said, it's been nice to meet you, young man. And then he finished, said, by the way, that man became one of my top clients and sources of referrals and recommendations. And all of it was happening because we just shared stories. Nothing happens until your story and their story begin to meet. And so let's understand the master entrepreneur, the master salesman. Let me tell you a story. Oftentimes, a personal testimony is the most effective way, because a personal testimony is someone's story. And you can't argue with their story because it's their story. It's not facts and figures and truth claims. It's a story. So please, right now, decide that you are going to learn how to be a Jesus kind of storyteller in your life and business. Now, we can help you do that. As I said, it's quite an art form, and there are ways that we can help you. But please, right now, accept that as a fundamental truth. Jesus told stories. And that's how he attracted people. And that's how he got people. And then at the end, he issued an invitation. Join me. Follow me. Now in salesmanship, that's called the close. That's where you're trying to bring them into action to do something. Not just inform them or educate them, but to invite them. Invite them into the good thing you have to offer. But he did more than that. Second thing, demonstrate how good you are. I oftentimes say, don't describe what you do. Demonstrate how good you are. Demonstrate that you're really good at what you do. Demonstrate that you have some value. Don't just tell me, show me. Make it work. Make it happen. One of Jesus' first miracles, they were out of wine. And what did he do? Oh my goodness. How did this happen? And it was good wine. That's what amazed them. Think about that. Demonstrate. And the word spread. And continually, Jesus' healing was twofold. First of all, it was because he had great, great empathy for the people he was working with. He was involved in their life, in their journey. And he didn't make them sit through a sermon before he healed them. However, and in many cases, he said, don't tell anybody. Not yet, right now. Well, of course, in many ways, that's exactly what they did do. Keep it a secret. Well, people know a secret, they'll try and probably tell other people the secret they have, but don't tell anybody. Jesus knew his audience. He'd spent 18 years doing business, and he knew human motivation. He knew what makes people work, how they tick, how they think. He had had good customers, bad customers. He knew the human condition. And so he demonstrated. And of course, one of the ultimate demonstrations, which blew the people away, was, of course, when he says to Lazarus, hey, come forth. And so even though you and I probably can't do such dramatic demonstrations, please remember that one of the great ways to sell yourself and your products is by demonstration. Again, describe what you do. More than likely, it would be better if you would learn to demonstrate how good you are. Demonstrate what you can do for people. And you see, that's where we begin to understand how he persuades others. Now, okay, what do? Okay, learn to tell stories. Number 2, learn how to demonstrate what you do. Number 3, as we've said before, please give them a vision of something better. Hey, this real world is not the real world. You know, this world of suffering, this world of sickness, this world of ill health. There's better things. There's a better thing, and it can come, and you can be a part of it. And so oftentimes we get involved in what I call fear-based selling. In fact, some people, that's totally what they do. They do it all the time. You know, do this, your car will break down. Do this. We make people afraid. Now, I will be the first to admit that that can be one of the better motivators. However, it always is short term because somebody will always come along and scare them again into something else. And the kind of selling which is based on a fear rather than a possibility, a good solution, a demonstration that the world and life can be better, and we have some of the things that can help life be better for you. Jesus didn't talk about sending people to hell that often that I know of. Really? He talked about the kingdom. He talked about what could be, what would be the better thing, the better world. Now, he had sharp words for those people when he went into what I would say challenging, and that's another point. Many times, if they were reluctant or if they weren't very good people, he knew perhaps they're not going to buy, but in his challenging them, he was being a good prophet as well as a good coach and a possible savior. But no matter what, he serves. Remember, Jesus does sell. Jesus serves. Jesus saves. Now, my friends, there's much more to the story than that. But I hope to have at least convinced you that Jesus is so remarkable. Who would have thought that I could have learned how to sell stuff by just looking at how he persuaded people? And by the way, you have to do that all the time if you're going to make your mark. As I say, if you're asking a nice young woman to go out with you, you're selling. If you're going to ask people to vote for you, you're selling. If you're seeking a job, a promotion, you're selling. You know, nothing happens until somebody gets somebody to take some movement and some action. And so please keep in mind, hey, treat every person you meet as the most important person in the world. Remember, everybody's wearing a secret sign. They are. Read the sign. It says, please tell me I'm important. Please tell me I'm important. And unfortunately, what most salespeople do is they try and teach the person that they are important. The worst thing about Facebook is it's all about you. The worst thing about social media is all you're doing is talking about you. People don't care that much about you, but they might care if you would care about them and if you would actually help them have a better life. And Jesus was in the business of saying, eternal life, the great shalom, begins here and now, and it goes on forever. He did it well. Lots of people didn't buy. But he knew that. He said that's going to happen. But then those who finally understood, you know, as the salespeople would say, the penny dropped, which means they got it. They got it. They understand it. You know, as we say, they're doing something they don't want to do. They're taking out their wallet or their checkbook and they're making a check or writing even you some money. They get the value. They get the deal. They get the understanding. And since it has been done in such a way in which they think it's their decision, which it is, you let them decide. more and more, the relationship is built, and you not only have a client or a customer, you perhaps have a good friend, and a good friend who will recommend you to others. Like Jesus said, hey, go and tell. Go and what you've seen, what you've heard, spread the word. And in effect, he didn't have to sell very much because the people were doing the selling for him. And that's how it grew, how it grew, and how it grew, and how it become exactly what he wanted it to be. A place where people truly would find that somebody loved and cared for them, that somebody really did want to serve them and save them. And that's what they wanted. And so they were very happy for the sell. I'm Stan Houston. Been a long lesson, but thank you for your time. But this is vital. And think about this a lot. Talk about it a lot. Share these stories with others. Watch this 3, 4, 5 times. And then we're going to actually talk about the next step is how did Jesus build in 3 years a world-class company? That's right. How did he build a world-class company? We'll see you around. That's coming next on, adventure number 4. Please reach out to us. I'm Stan Houston. StanHouston@gmail.com, witradio.net, 520-664-7002, USA.